Good evening. I, Gauri Deshpande, interning with the Nature's Eye, welcome you all for the webinar on tracking climate change through trees. Before we proceed, I would like to introduce my team members present here. They are Gaushika, Arun, Grace, and Aparna from the Nature's Eye. The Nature's Eye, powered by Wildlife Arc, is a group of nature enthusiasts who wish to share their knowledge and experience with the world. They strive to bring informative and educational content from the tiny living world to the city dwellers. Their motto is to empower environmentalists everywhere, which aims to create opportunities to budding environmentalists, people related to this field, and also the ones who want to join it anew through their various offline and online programs. This webinar is one such attempt within the training and internship program which we are a part of. There are a number of such events in line as well. We'd like to inform you that we are having a wildlife film making expedition in the month of July and August, and a webinar on Russell's viper ecology by Mr. Jerry Martin on 1st of July, about which further information will be shared at the end of the session. We have special discounts for the webinar as well, so stay tuned till the end to know more. Without further delay, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce the topic and our speaker for today. Today's webinar is on tracking climate change through trees, which will be presented by Ms. Sai Girdhari. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box and I'll bring them up at the end of the presentation. So, what do you mean by tracking climate change through trees? Trees are the reflection of seasons. When seasons change due to climate change, so does the seasonality of trees, which in turn affects all fauna dependent on trees, including humans. Hence, tracking the leaves, flowers, and fruits of seasonal trees around us is an effective way of understanding the impact of climate change. Through this webinar, you will learn that what trees plays its role in climate change and what climate change does to the trees in a different perspective. Now, coming to our speaker, Ms. Sai Girdhari has studied MSc Botany from Pune University. She's worked with the Karnataka State Biodiversity Board as, as field botanist and Terracon Ecotech Private Limited as biodiversity analyst before joining the Season Watch project at Nature Conservation Foundation. She is passionate about plants and loves to take people for tree walks and nature trials to show how amazing plants are. I, once again, on behalf of the Nature's Eye team, welcome and thank you all for joining in today's event. Over to you, Ms. Girdhari.
Hi, thank you, Gauri, for the introduction to the Nature's Eye, to the webinar, and also to me. I again welcome you all and thank you for joining us today. And I hope you enjoy the presentation and also feel like joining Season Watch. So, shall we begin the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, cool. So thank you, Nature Sai, for this opportunity, and I'm very glad I'm able to interact with all of you, even if it's online. I hope we'll also be able to arrange some tree walks in the future so that we can meet in person and do all this discussion in a much more interactive and fun way. For now, let's begin with tree watching with Season Watch. Uh, so the title tells you that we're going to watch seasons and through trees. But why trees? Is because trees are the pulse of seasons. They are the mirror to the climatic changes that happen around us. And as visible from this little picture, tree, although they are stationary, they stay in one place and they are mostly boring to most of us, they still change dramatically and that this change is in response to seasons, to change in the temperature, precipitation, and other factors that change with the season. And this has been used previously by for maybe non-scientific purposes and maybe even inadvertently, but seasons and trees have been very intricately connected, and so have been humans with both of these factors. And so we are going to take this opportunity to understand more about climate change. So how are we going to look at seasons that change, and how do trees show that these changes in the seasons is through phenology. So I'm sure you're all aware of bird migration or phenomena of how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, right? So it emerges from an egg, it undergoes many developmental stages, and then finally it pupates and then turns into a beautiful butterfly. So all these different stages and the study is called phenology. And even trees undergo these cyclic changes in response to seasons, and that can be called tree phenology. So the different stages or changes that happen in the tree can be seen in the form of new leaves that sprout on a tree, shedding of old leaves when the tree goes completely or even partially leafless, when the flower buds appear and then they blossom into beautiful colorful flowers, when these flowers then turn into fruits which are unripe at first and they ripen and eventually they dry and shed their seeds for the new generation of trees to begin. So all of these stages is what is tree phenology, and we are going to study these stages. We're going to observe them closely to understand how the tree is responding to the seasons. Now, we all are aware of climate change and we're talking about it, we're trying to understand it better. But what is the proof that climate change is changing seasons and that is impacting trees? So, let me show you this very wonderful example from Japan. And so the you must be aware of sakura, which is the cherry blossom in Japan, and it's a big event. It's a beautiful opportunity for large amount of or great level of tourism, and a lot of people pour in from all over the world to see these beautiful pink trees. And so this blooming happens in the summer season. Historically, since 800 AD, people have been noting on what day exactly this bloom is at its peak. So the day when the flowers, all the trees and their flower to their maximum capacity is recorded by the people since 800 AD. So we have a data from 1200 years of this flowering, right? And so if we collate that data, if we put it together and make it into a graph, we can visualize how that date has been changing through all these 1200 years, right? So initially we see it goes up and down without much change, but since 1800 AD, which is when the industrial revolution started, which is when carbon emissions due to human activities increased, which is effectively when climate change started, we can see there's a severe drop. There's a very prominent drop in the graph, which indicates that the flowering of cherry is happening earlier than expected, than what has been happening since the past 1,000 years, right? So this change, if you see, the peak used to be around 10th of April, but now it has come down to maybe 2nd or 3rd of April. And that change is just about 8 days. And we would think that what difference would this tiny 8 days of change would make? But we are thinking as humans. If we think as somebody as a caterpillar or a bee or a butterfly whose life itself is a few months, and even lesser than that in case of insects and bees. And so for these organisms, these tiny organisms uh, whose survival depends on these peak events, if there's a delay or there's a sudden change of 5 to 8 days, that means life and death, right? And it's just one element that is altering, which is flowering time by 8 days, that is triggering a change that is beyond our comprehension right now. So if the butterflies are affected, then the bird population will be affected, then everything that depends on the bird will get affected, and it starts this butterfly effect off. So because trees are the basis of ecosystem, and because they kind of drive everything that lives in an ecosystem, if trees are changing even slightly, the entire ecosystem changes. And that is what can be seen quite clearly. The change that can happen in trees is quite clearly visible in this graph. So people have understood that trees are quite reliable when it comes to understanding seasonal changes and impact of climate change on seasons. The US National Phenology Network, another project which works in the US, has used this similar study to understand how what is happening with the living beings because of climate change. Right, so they have collected about 20 years of data, and that data shows that in US they are not only observing trees, unlike season watch, they're observing phenology of trees and all that depends on trees, for example butterflies, birds, and other animals and plants. Right, so they have found that based on this visualization of the data that has been collected, it is seen that all the phenological occurrences or changes that happen are happening 20 days early in the southern part of the country, and there's no difference in the central part, but there's a delay of 20 days in the northern part. So you must have heard the statement about climate change, that because of climate change, the warmer parts of the world are getting warmer and the colder parts are getting colder. So to make such one
हाँ
statement about climate
नहीं
change, we require large amount of data so
पहाड़
that
में
statement has a proof and it can
देखिए
be
चाली
generalized,
से
because it's
चीना
very very important to have a proof, because there are many people in this world who think climate change is not real, right? So both cherry blossom and the US example is set in temperate regions of the world, which means the entire population of plant, all the species there, they're called temperate trees, and they're very very sensitive to temperature changes. And that's a category of trees called temperate trees. And what happens in these trees is they shed all their leaves and they all kind of go into a dormancy during low temperatures, and when the temperatures rise then they start flowering and doing more active things. And in India is a tropical country, and there are there's a tropical belt which has a lot of diversity, and India is one of them. So these tropical trees also go through these changes, so they shed their leaves, they grow new leaves, they flower, and the flowers turn into fruits, and the fruits dehisce to shed off seeds, and then another next year cycle begins when all of these activities happen. But the major difference between temperate trees and tropical trees is this: temperate trees like the cherry blossom or the oaks or the acers in the temperate regions, they are very very sensitive to temperature and temperature alone. So when temperature is changing, their phenology is changing, which is very simple to understand and to follow and to monitor. But in tropical regions like India, the trees, the diversity of trees that we have, they're sensitive not only to temperature but also rainfall, which is precipitation, and even the day length, which varies as per throughout the year, right? So when the temperature, precipitation, and day length are changing, it's not like it is uniformly affecting each and every individual in India. The phenology of each and every individual again is dependent on the species it belongs to the community that it belongs to, and to the population it belongs to. For example, there are imagine maybe a tamarind tree. That tamarind tree is not going to flower uh, throughout the country at the same time, because India is a diverse, very very diverse country in many many aspects. So we have the Himalayas, we have the coast, we have the dry Deccan Plateau, we have the evergreen and moist northeastern region. And tamarind is a tree which can be found almost everywhere in India. But if you ask people in different regions what's happening with their tamarind trees, the answers will vary, and which is because of all these factors that affect the tropical trees. So depending on what trees are around a tamarind tree or where the tamarind tree is situated, its phenology is going to change. And not just that, it also changes according to which kind of forest it is in, whether it's in a deciduous forest or a semi-evergreen forest or an evergreen forest and so on. And based on different species, they will have different types of life cycles or different types of annual cycles. So for some trees like tamarind, mango, they will flower just one time a year. So they have an annual flowering cycle. But there are some trees, maybe like chiku, which flower multiple times a year. So they may have multiple flowering cycles. They can also be aseasonal, which means they do not flower or fruit in particular season, but they continue to season to flower or fruit almost throughout the year. For example, figs, ficuses. Right, so the scene in India and the tropical tree diversity that we have is not as simple as temperate trees, which is why we require much more data and much more contribution to understand how climate change is affecting trees in India, tree population and diversity in India. And but why are we even worried about these 5 to 10 years, 10 days change that might happen because of climate change? That is because even though we city folks are not very aware of it, our lives are very intricately connected with trees. For example, our festivals are determined or celebrated with the help of trees. So Maharashtra and Karnataka have the new year during the beginning of summer, which is when the neem trees are flowering. That is the flowering season for the neem. And for the celebration of this new year, we utilize these neem flowers and new leaves that occur on the tree during that period. In Kerala, New Year is celebrated, which is called Vishu, by using the flowers of the Indian laburnum or amaltash tree. And that tree is called Kanikuna. And it's a very peculiar and important example, especially for season watch and to understand or visualize how climate change is changing trees in India. In central India, summer is marked by the flowers of mahua and palash, and a lot of the communities, cultural and religious activities, as well as the economy, depends on the flowering of these trees. Also, in the Himalayan part, there's a tree called rhododendron, or which is also called lal buranch in certain states in Himalayas. And their economy also depends on the products that the communities, the tribes make out of the flowers of rhododendron. Moreover, a lot of people visit the places to see the flowering, to see the beauty of the mountains during this summer season. And that tourism again gains money, or the economy runs the economy of these parts. So by these various ways, our lives are intricately connected with trees. And if trees are changing, then our age old activities and all the cultural things that our generations have followed may have to be changed, or may be forced to give them up or change the timing of celebrations, because the trees are changing, right? And to come to this Kanikona from Kerala example, Season Watch has been working with Kerala since the beginning, since past 10 years, and we have gathered some data. Rather, the people of Kerala have gathered some data. The citizen scientists there have gathered some data on the flowering of the Indian laburnum tree. And if you look at the graph here, each red line indicates the date of Vishu festival in the respective years, right? And if you see the yellow shaded graph, the peak of that graph indicates peak flowering of the Kanikuna. So traditionally, that peak is supposed to coincide with the red line. But since past few years, the peak is happening before Vishu festival, which means for the festival celebration, there are few to almost no flowers available. And it's so bad that people had to use plastic flowers for celebrating. Now, although we may think that ठीक है नहीं फूल मिला तो क्या ही फर्क पड़ जाएगा, it's okay to use plastic flowers sometimes, but that is just from a human perspective again. So many things depend on the flowering of amaltash, which we may not see directly all the time, right? They may be provisioning for a lot of bees and insects and maybe wasps and butterflies and many animals and organisms may be dependent on this flowering. And if this flowering is becoming so erratic, not only are our cultural celebrations hindered, but the life cycles of these organisms are hindered. And this has been the first time the study has been made which indicated climate change is causing this immense change in the way trees are behaving in India, right? And this is a major reason why we need to look deeper and for a longer time into how trees are behaving these days to understand the impact of climate change. And that is where Season Watch comes in picture. So Season Watch was started, as I mentioned earlier, 10 years ago by Nature Conservation Foundation, National Center for Biological Sciences, which is NCBS, and it was funded by the Wipro Foundation. And the idea is to collect data on the flowering, fruiting, and leaf patterns of trees all over India for a prolonged period of time. So large amount of data for a large amount of time is what is going to give us a picture, an idea of what is happening because of climate change in India. And so if you imagine a project started by say 5 people, and we cannot even imagine these 5 people collecting this amount of data all over India, right? So people decided that we will ask people in different regions to help us out. So which means the people who drive this project, who collect data, who the scientists of this project are people like you and me, people from different parts of the country who have access to trees, who have access to a bit of technology. And we are the scientists who are going to be collecting data on trees around us, right? So if that appeals to you, I would like to tell you more about how this data collection can be done. So let's get to the action part of the presentation. We can download the Season Watch app through Play Store, Google Play Store, and it is available right now only for Android phones. If you use an iPhone, or if you do not want to use an application, you can directly use the website, Season Watch website, and you begin with registering yourself as a user, as a contributor, as a citizen scientist or season watcher. So once you're registered, you can start making observations on the trees. Season Watch team has very thoughtfully and carefully identified 150 species of trees which are available or present almost all over the country. There are some trees, of course, which are found only in Himalayan, the Western Himalayan region, or in Northeast. They are not found anywhere else in the country, and they're of course to get data from those particular regions. But rest of almost 130 species are at our disposal in rest of the country to observe. And you cannot observe trees that are other than these 150. That is because that data will not be a large scale data and it won't be useful. So if you'd like to make observations on rare trees around you, then you can use other citizen science applications like iNaturalist or India Biodiversity Portal, or you can even send your pictures and identifications to Citizen Watch directly, and we would like to display it on our social media. But as for data collection to study climate change impact, we have to stick to these 150 species. Right. So once we have our list ready, we begin with making two types of observations. One is regular observation, in which we register a tree and we add observation once per week. That is regular observation. So to make this, to register a tree, we first determine what tree is in front of us right now. We select the species of that tree. Then we select the location. This is very, very crucial because that location is going to give us the climate, the weather data of that day and that location, which will then correlate with what phenophases were seen on your tree. Then to register a tree, we give the tree a nickname. It can be anything that you like to know the tree as. I usually name the trees that I observe based on what shop is close to the tree, so that it's also a landmark for me. But people also give their own nicknames to their trees, or imagine what the tree looks like and then use those names for the tree. It's all up to you. So once you've selected the species, you can call it whatever you like. Then we add a location type, which is garden or a park or a roadside or forest or a college or school campus. This is important because if the tree is watered regularly, then its phenophases, its phenology, its cyclic changes may vary. And this is going to give us an idea as to why that tree may be behaving differently from other individuals of the species. So this is a crucial information. You can also add tree notes, which are optional, and they can be anything peculiar about the tree, about its history, about a story, about the way people around interact, maybe a nest or some animal that might be residing in that tree, anything that you observe and find worth noting about the tree. Next, you have to add the height of the tree in meters. It can be approximate. In cities, it's easier for us because we can use how many floors of the building next to it are till where the tree reaches. So that helps me determine the height. But you can use other more sophisticated techniques if you know any to measure the tree height. You also have to measure the girth of the tree, which is the how fat the trunk is at your chest level. For that, you can either use measuring tape or a rope, or even this distance. So for me, this distance is almost 15 centimeter. It can be approximate, so you can just go around the tree like this and calculate the girth in centimeters. You can also add if the tree is damaged or it's watered or fertilized, which again affects how the tree is going to display its phenophases. And lastly, once all these details are put up and your tree is registered, you are free to add observation once every week. So for this observation, you can select one day of the week and one fixed time, so that the data is it's even basically and not biased, or not varying a lot, right? So this is how you go about making regular observations. Another type of observation is casual, which means it is just one time observation. In this, you do not register a tree, but you simply add the species of the tree, the location of the tree, and you add the phenophase observations on the tree. So in this, the registering step is skipped. You make only one time observation, and this is ideal for places you go to visit as tourist, or only one time visit. For example, now I'm in Bangalore to my office, and I'm not going to see these trees every day. So the trees I see here, I'm going to add casual observations on these trees. So this is how it can be done. Now, the crucial part as to how to add the phenophase observations. So for observing a tree, we are considering only the canopy, which is the branches and leaf part of the tree. And that is where all the cyclic changes, seasonal changes happen. And they happen in leaves, flowers, and fruits. So these are the three organs of the tree that we are going to observe when we season watch a tree, right? So to begin with, we imagine the canopy of the tree to be a circle, and we divide it in three parts. So imagine a Mercedes logo in front of a tree canopy. Now we have to check the different stages of leaves, flowers, and fruits, and we have to note in how many of those three parts of the canopy are they present. So in leaves, we are going to look for fresh leaves, which is very tender young leaves. They are usually sometimes red in color, or they can be lighter green in color. They'll be smaller in size, and so on. So this is how you identify fresh leaves of a tree, and you see whether they are absent, like they're in none of the three parts, and you choose and you put your observation as few. If they're present in one of the three parts, you put your observation as few. If they're present in two, any two or all three of these three parts, you put as many. Same goes for mature leaves, which are darker green in color and which are fully grown, so they're of optimum size and they do all the work that is required for the tree. There can be dry leaves, which are usually yellow or brown or orangish in color. And again, same way, you see in how many of the three parts are present, and accordingly add your observation on the dry leaves as none, few, or many. When the tree is flowering and fruiting, we go for the flower fruit observation. Other times, when there are no flowers or no fruits, you have to select none. You cannot leave that space empty. Do not say don't know, which is an option in the observation, because don't know renders the observation useless. But there can be instances where you do not know how the phenophase looks like. So in that case, you can use don't know. But we are trying to help you with that too by bringing a phenology guide, which will have images of each of the phenophases of the trees, of all 150 species that we have, and you can use that guide to identify what organ is or what stage of the leaves, flowers, or fruits you're seeing on the tree, right? So same none few many type of observation for flower buds and open flowers. Again, none few many type of observations for the unripe fruit, which are usually smaller green in color, ripe fruit which are colorful, edible, and open fruit wherever applicable. So according to the species, the tree species which bear pods, for example gulmohar or purple bauhinia, or which is kanchan, or even what else, rain tree. So these kind of trees, they open their pods naturally, they dry and they open naturally, and those open seedless pods, they stay on the tree itself. And when you see that, you can conclude that these are the open fruits, and you add your observation accordingly, based on how many, in how many parts of the tree they're present. So I also want to tell you that if you see one young leaf in this part, one green leaf in this part, and one in this part, that will still be many because it's present in three parts of the tree. But just because they're very few in number doesn't mean we can add few as the observation. It is a proportion of presence of the phenophase and not the number, right? So that is one thing to remember. So to reinforce this, let's look at one example of our favorite mango. This is one mango tree that that we all are observing right now. Okay, so let's go stepwise doing this. So we have selected our species, we have added the location of this individual, and now we have divided the canopy in three parts. So now we begin with observing fresh leaves. So here you see there are light green leaves and they can be seen a bit in this part as well. So I have concluded that the fresh leaves are present in two of the three parts of the canopy. So I select many as my observation on the fresh leaves. Mature leaves are present in all three parts, which is very, very clear to us. So we select many. We do not see any brown or yellow leaves in any parts of the canopy, so we select none. Now let's look at flowers. Here, are you all familiar with the mango flowers? They are whitish or pinkish or even yellowish colored bunches, and they appear usually ideally in the beginning of summer. So you will start seeing them in February, March, and so on. And my observation is made in May or right now maybe. So there will obviously be no flowers. So and I also am not making an assumption, but I do not see any flowers in the tree. So for the buds as well as open flowers, I select none because there are no flowers or no buds in this tree. Next we go to the fruits. So you see these cherries hanging from the tree in all three parts. So I select many for the unripe fruit. So until very recently, I have never seen a ripe mango on the tree. We are all very greedy people, so we just pluck them while they are unripe, and then we ripen them and we eat them. So I personally have never seen any ripe mangoes on tree. But you will see yellow mangoes, and if you do, then you can add your observation in the ripe fruit section, and you can select whether they are none, whether they are few, or whether they are many. Lastly, or second lastly rather, you can add any of these animals interacting with the leaves, flowers, or fruits of the tree. So this is not theoretical, or it is not an ideal situation. If I am observing the tree right now and I see either caterpillars or bees or butterflies or birds or squirrels or multiple of these animals on the tree right when I'm observing, that's when I can tick these boxes accordingly. And why are we observing only these and not other animals like ants or some other animals that may, or beetles or some insects that may be visiting the tree? Is because these animals, though they're easy to identify, and they interact with the changing components of the tree, right? The caterpillars usually come for the leaves, so if it's a leafless tree, there will be no caterpillars. Bees, butterflies come for the flowers, so if there are no flowers, there are ideally no bees and butterflies around the tree. Birds and squirrels, they come for the fruits, so if there are no fruits, or if it's a fruiting season, then you're likely to see these animals on the tree. So they come visit a tree according to the cyclic changes that happen, and which is why we are observing only these animals and not animals like ants, which are so often seen on the trees, right? Lastly, you can add any notes on the tree. For example, if a tree that you're observing regularly gets chopped off, then you can add that in the observation, which is so likely to happen in cities. Or if you see there are some diseased leaves on the tree, or if you want to identify the animals that you saw on the tree and write which exact species you saw, for example, species of butterflies or birds, or what kind of squirrel it was, or what the squirrel was even doing, then you can add anything that you feel noteworthy, you can add in this notes section. And finally, once all of this information is gone, which is the species name, the date of observation, the phenophases, which are all three stages of the leaves, which are new leaves, mature leaves, old leaves, stages of flowers, which are buds and open flowers, stages of fruits, which are unripe fruits, ripe fruits, and in some cases open fruits. And this is optional, the animal observations are optional. So even if you leave that space blank, you can still upload an observation, and even notes are optional. So all the three, the leaf, flower, and fruit stages, once they're uploaded, they're recorded, you can choose to save your observation, which will send this observation that you've made on the tree to the season watch database on the website. which means you have made a valuable contribution to understanding climate change impact on this particular species, right? So I understand that one big challenge in observing trees is how to identify them. Now, that is a challenge that can be solved in multiple ways, which is going for tree walks, trying on your own to identify trees around you, talking to experts, sending your photographs for identification. iNaturalist also helps quite a bit, quite efficiently in identifying your trees, and so on. But for this particular session, I would like to introduce you to six very common trees that we see around us, and give you some pointers that may help you to identify those trees even when they do not have any flowers or fruits. So first one, of course, is the beloved banyan tree. It can be identified by roundish, almost oval shape, but round tipped, dark green leaves. If you are able to pluck the leaf, you should see white latex coming out of it, coming out of the broken part. You will obviously see all these hanging roots, aerial roots hanging from the tree, which is such a crucial identifying feature of a banyan tree. And when the tree is fruiting, you will see these red small fig-like fruits at the tips of the branches. They will be clustered together. So that is banyan tree. The bark also is quite important when it comes to identifying, and the bark of banyan tree is smooth and light brown in color. Next is the Indian laburnum or amaltash or bahava or kannikona tree. It can be identified by its yellowish orange color. So you will see about three to four pairs of leaves together, and that is one single leaf. When it's summer, then it's very easy to identify the tree by its hanging chandelier-like flowers, which are so beautiful, and it's just impossible to tear your eyes away from the tree. And after the flowering is successful, or even from the previous year's flowering, there are long stick-like pods which are dark brown, chocolate brown in color. So these are the ways in which you can identify an Indian laburnum tree. Gulmohar is another tree which is also called Mayflower, because the tree blooms massively in May season, May month of May. Other times you can identify it by its umbrella-shaped canopy, very fine feathery leaves. The trunk is smooth and very shapely. It will like grow nice, straight, and then it start branching in a very systematic manner. And when the season is summer, then there are red flowers, and after the flowers, you also see these flat, long, sturdy pods on the tree. There's also people tree, which is again quite well known, but the pointers can be white bark, which can be a bit rough, a long, slender leaf tip. So there are heart-shaped leaves with a slender, long tip, and the canopy is usually very large and nice round. It's a shapely canopy, and small fruits which can be, so if this is the branch and these are the leaves of the tree, then or the fruits will be lined here between at the axils in the pockets of the leaves where the leaves are attached to the branch, right? So that's how the fruiting of people is can be seen. So do banyans and people do fruit, and if you look carefully, right now also many ficuses are blooming and fruiting. So you will be able to see fruits in quite a few trees. So just look up whenever you find a people tree, and look closely if you find these globular shapes in the canopy somewhere. False Ashoka is another tree which is taken for granted because it's so abundant everywhere. It is found usually along a compound wall as a living hedge. They are usually conical trees, which also can be termed as kulfi trees. The leaves are long and wavy and can often be confused with mangoes in some cases. They flower too, so it's quite rarely observed. But the false ashok tree does flower, and it bears these star-shaped green-colored flowers. And if you go very close to the trunk and look up in the canopy, you will see these flowers, and they usually are found in the beginning of the summer. So during March, April, you should be able to see the flowering. These flowers later turn into blackberries, which are fed on by birds and squirrels and bats a lot. So you will find a kachra of a lot of seeds and these black, thin covers of the fruits under the tree during this and monsoon season. So this is how this false ashok or asupalav or mast tree can.
ಒಂದು ಯಾವ್ದೋ ವೆಬಿನಾರ್ಗೆ ರಿಜಿಸ್ಟರ್ ಆಗಿದ್ದೆ,
Okay.
ನೇಚರ್ ಸೈ
And then
ವೆಬಿನಾರ್.
lastly, there's Pride of India, which was star of the season quite a few months ago. And you would have seen, especially people in Mumbai, would have seen these purple-colored flowers all along the roads in a short and spreading canopy. So that is Pride of India or Queen's Medal or Tamhan or Jarul, which are the names for this tree. The tree can be identified by a spreading short stubby canopy, and it looks like a small umbrella. The leaves are large and pointy. So the flowers are purple with peppery wrinkled petals, and the fruit is woody, which looks like a pomegranate when it's closed, and it opens into 6 to 7 sections, and then the seeds are given off. So now you should be seeing fruiting and old dehisced fruits or even flowers in some cases. So these are some 6 trees that can be identified quite easily. They're present almost all over India because they're ornamental, they're religiously important, and so on. If you want to know more about trees, Season Watch has published some resources, which is a pocket guide uh, that can be ordered from our Instamojo link that I can email to you all. It's this size pocket guide and it has information that is displayed right here in this poster. And it has 35 trees and all their stages. So there'll be flowers, fruits, leaves, even seeds in some cases. And that can be used very efficiently on the field to identify your trees. These charts are A2 size charts, quite huge and ideal for offices or NGO offices or even corporate offices if you like to have some, and schools especially. So right now Season Watch is giving away our resources, which includes this poster, one pamphlet which describes how to use or how to observe Season Watch, and one activity handbook which is very very useful for naturalists and nature educators to engage their participants, their students with trees. So we often struggle as to how to get people interested in trees or how to ourselves get introduced to the trees. So that this handbook is quite ideal. So if you're a school teacher, an educator, you take nature trails or you run an NGO or a part of an NGO, write to us and on our email ID if you'd like to receive one of these kits and we will send it to you. Right now it's available only in English. The handbook, activity handbook is available in Hindi, and the pamphlets are available in bilingual. They're bilingual in English and Telugu, Kannada, or Tamil. So you also give the preference of handbook and the bilingual pamphlets language, and we will send them to you accordingly. Other than Season Watch resources, there are of course a lot of books and websites that you can refer to. There's Jungle Trees of Central India and Trees of Delhi, beautifully created books by Pradeep Kisan, and it has information on the deciduous trees mostly from central and northern India. So Central India mostly. They're found also in Maharashtra and Karnataka, so it's a good resource for anywhere in India essentially. Flowers of Sahyadri is a good book which comprises of herbs, shrubs, climbers, and trees, and they use flowers for identification. And there's also another a new book publication from the same author, which is based on leaves. So to keep both of this together is the best idea in the world, and they're quite handy, a little bit heavy, but they can be used on field as well. 100 Indian Trees by Sanjay Deva is again another good book to refer to for beginners in trees. And Discover Avenue Trees by Karthikeyan S is a very small, tiny booklet and can be used effectively in cities, especially because it consists of all exotic and ornamental trees that the municipal corporations so love to plant along the roads in our cities. Websites like flowersofIndia.net and INAT are also very useful to identify your flowers. Lastly, if you do not want to use any of these or need more information on your trees, you can connect with us for your queries or just simply sharing your tree stories, and we would be very happy to interact with you and talk to you about trees. So you can either email to us, even anything that you would like. If you would like to collaborate with Season Watch, we would be more than happy to do that. Or if you want the kits that I mentioned earlier, you can email us. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp, and I will be the one you'll be talking to. And we do give identification if you share the right photo. The photo should be of the entire tree, a bark if possible, leaves, the entire leaf, and arrangement of multiple leaves would also be very, very helpful. If you have flowers and fruits, which if not visible on the tree, look under the tree and find and click whatever you find can be related to the tree. And all of these photos will be very efficient or helpful for us to identify. So if you're able to send such photos, we would be happy to help. We also have Season Watch WhatsApp groups for different states, which are Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Bangalore right now, not all of Karnataka, Kerala, Meghalaya, Uttarakhand. So you can also choose to connect with other people who are interested in trees in these groups and get your trees identified, get your queries solved. Just join some discussions as to how to talk to your students or your participants about trees and so on. Season Watch has been contributed by our partners, which are Matrubhumi Seed in Kerala, SCSTE, FES, Foundation for Ecological Security in Madhya Pradesh, and now Maharashtra as well. Keystone Foundation, ANET, which observes trees in Andaman and Nicobar, and Nature Conservation Foundation Society of Nashik, and a few more partners are joining us now. And I really hope that this webinar has inspired you to look at trees around you and told you that climate change is not happening far away in the north and southern poles or in coasts, but it's right in our gardens, on the trees around us, everywhere. So if we want to do something along with making our lifestyle sustainable, that I'm sure all of you are trying to, we can also contribute to scientific research that is happening, and it is very, very crucial to understand the impact of climate change, because it's so new that none of us know anything very surely about it. So it's a really, really good idea to contribute as much as we can as citizens of this world and as inhabitants of this planet, um, to maybe save us ourselves from the harm of climate change. So I'll stop here, and I hope you enjoyed, and it's open for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Girdhari, for a very insightful and interesting talk. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. Just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions into the chat box.
Zaira, yes, we can avail the data from Citizen Watch. It's a citizen science platform, which means the data belongs to everyone who contributes and also who doesn't. So you can write to Citizen Watch as to what data you want, and we will send the Excel sheet over to you. To share the recorded video of today's webinar WhatsApp group, because there are a lot of voice breakouts in between. I guess somebody from the Nature's Eye could answer this.
Oh, yeah, ma'am, we'll see to that thing.
Okay, great. Regarding the scoring, I don't understand what scoring are you talking about, Akhil? Can
Hi.
he unmute himself and ask the question? I think that will be more.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Yeah. You said that even if there is three fruits in three different parts, we can score many, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How does that make sense? Like even if there is three seeds, we are scoring many. Like, what does that mean? Like, you got my question, right?
I didn't get your question.
Like there is a potential to like lot of fruitings in that tree.
Right.
So if there is only three fruits, or like what is the phenophase that? Huh. So we are scoring it as many,
Yeah.
but it's it's not that many, right?
Right.
Yeah. So how does that make sense?
That's a good question. So this uh, quantitating the phenophases, it can be done in multiple ways, and this is the easiest way of it, which is called a 1/3 rule. So that doesn't check the abundance or or the level of flowering or fruiting, but the distribution of the phenophase on the tree. Right? So how much part of the tree is flowering or fruiting? That is what we are trying to determine. And that's why we are dividing it in 3 parts and counting in how many of the parts the phenophase is present. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And if you do not do this doodling on the screen, that will be great, because this is a important slide where people can take the resources down from. And it's really, thank you. You can take a screenshot of this if you like, so that these resources stay with you. Great, I'll just go to the chat box again. Working Phenology 20 trees, but you mentioned not writing dates but only month. How can I fill the data? Should I start over? Could you write or maybe also send your data to Season Watch at sw@seasonwatch.in, and maybe we can see if your data can be used. Monthly data should be good because yes, Govardhan. Which state group would you like to join? I'll send a so the Nature Sci people, is there any group for these participants that we can send the links to?
Yes, there is.
Okay, can I send you a message of all the links then, which you can forward?
Yes, please do.
Okay. Phenology of trees, page 2. Okay. Is that the page you were looking for? Yeah, so I will share links to all the groups that are available to the Nature Sci group, and you shall receive them. You can tap on the respective links and join. So we do not have links for some groups yet. And if you can form a group yourself, we'll be happy to make a group for you all. So we have here some trees to plant in particular location. Devidrita, this plantation is a very tricky thing, and it's not always a good idea to keep planting trees everywhere. We have to be very aware of what type of habitat we are planting it in. For example, planting a ficus in a grassland is not a good idea. Grasslands are not wastelands which need trees to be planted in. So the best thing to do when you are planning a plantation is to do a recce, like go and survey the area that you are planning to do this plantation in. You identify what trees are already present there, especially in a wild area nearby, and you use exactly those species to plant in this location. That is the best thing to do. That is the best way to go about it. Otherwise, it's best to not do any plantations in areas that you don't know anything about. That's my suggestion. And more than not planting any trees, planting wrong trees in wrong places is causing more harm than good. So it's really sensitive topic, and it requires more attention than just saplings. Do you have any baseline data with which you compare and understand impact of climate change? So this is the baseline data that we're trying to gather right now. There have been studies which are region specific, which are protected area specific, where we get some idea as to how some species are behaving in those particular regions. But we do not have any baseline as yet. Season Watch is the only phenology study for climate change in India right now. So this is the baseline data that we have. This activity has been done in rural areas. So the partas that we have, FES and SCSTE, even ANET, they have been working in remote areas with different tribes and communities, and even you can do it if you run an NGO and take this, like partner with us, collaborate with us, and you can take the information to those areas. It's not specific to urban areas for sure. If network is an issue, which can, and technology basically, which can happen in urban areas, we do have manual resources like like observation sheet, which is just a sheet that you can fill while observing your trees, and that can be later digitized when and however possible. And that's how you can, people have worked in rural areas, so it works for all parts of the country, whether they're urban or rural is not an issue. Diploma course in biodiversity, institutes like BNHS and some other institutes in Pune do offer this course. And I do not have information ready on that right now, but they're definitely available and you can do it. I have to do something for the students of my village regarding this. I'll reach you out for the. Please do, Rashmita. I'll wait for your email. Write to us at Season Watch. Definitely, definitely. If it's doable, we will surely love to collaborate. In fact, right now, all of us, like there are 5 people in our team, and we're in different states, and we're trying to do exactly this. We're reaching out to teachers, especially, and lecturers and educators and naturalists, so that they can start season watching and promoting the project while contributing to it to different people. So outreach is one of our major jobs right now. Does false Ashoka also flower in June? Yes, it can be seen flowering in June in some areas. I have personally seen it. It begins in late summer, so it can continue to flower in June. I hope I've answered all the questions. If I missed any, please point them out.
Yes, there were a few questions in the beginning. I'll just bring them up.
Yeah.
So there was one from Jagjot. He's asking, is Palash tree also known as flame of the forest?
Flame, yes, correct. That is, those two are the same trees.
Then there's a question from Nirmal. How to differentiate between Gulmohar and Sesalpine?
Cisalpinia. So I don't know which Cisalpinia you're exactly talking about, but Gulmohar, if I'm thinking of peacock flower, which is one of the Cisalpinias, Gulmohar is a big tree with bright red flowers, and Cisalpinia is a shrub, so it's very small compared to Gulmohar. And Gulmohar also, so that's a major basic difference. And this peacock flower you'll see blooming throughout the year. They do not have a particular season. And Gulmohar flowers only in late summer. So that's one major difference. So if you want to collaborate, Chinmay, please write to us as to what activities you do, whether you work with students or you're a naturalist or you have an NGO and so on. And tell us a brief about what activities you do, and send us an email basically at sw@seasonwatch.in, and we will get back to you and we'll do a meeting as to how to go about it. So it'll be very personalized, don't worry about it. I'll again display the contacts slide so that you can write down our contacts.
There's one more question from Govardhan. He's asking, what is the cost of the handbook?
The pocket guide handbook is free. You can also download a soft copy if you do not want to wait for a hard copy to reach you. I'll send those links as well in the group that the Nature's Eye has. And the pocket guide that I mentioned earlier, this of 35 commentaries, this pocket guide is for rupees 35. It's very nominal price. I think everybody can afford it.
There's another question from Zaira. Can we avail the data from Season Watch?
Yes, I think I've answered that question. You can write to Season Watch on the same email and we can send you the information. There is a WhatsApp group link for Tamil Nadu. I will send it over. I'll send all the groups that we currently have. And if you are a group of naturalists who want to interact with Season Watch and want to start it in your area with your group, then we would be happy to make a WhatsApp group so guide you as to how to Season Watch and collaborate. So we use this presentation for many webinars, so I unfortunately won't be able to share it, sorry. But I can send any particular resources that you may need. I'll also send a YouTube video, which is very short, half to 1 minute video, which tells you how to add your observations. So I think that should help you if you're looking for the protocol. Okay, any more questions?
Ma'am, there's a question.
Mhm.
It says like, what's your opinion regarding the permanent preservation plots establishing in forested areas?
I have very high opinions of that, and it's called long-term ecological monitoring. And many projects and research labs are doing that. And that is a very scientific method and very dedicated thing to do. But if we are to use citizens and make this citizen science, then I don't think that's a really good idea, because we want, again, it's not a large scale information that we can gain from these permanent plots, right? There are in specific regions, and only a few people will be able to work, and will get the impact only in that niche area. So if you want like a overall impact all over India, then um, these plots will not be very helpful. So that's how these studies and season watch differs in the data collection, basically. I hope that answers the question.
And there's one more question.
Mhm.
I'll read it out for you. How
Yeah.
the outcome of this project would be used? Any plans by season watch?
Right. So we have data for 10 years now, but we still do not have enough to make a particular conclusion from the data, and we're still trying to get more data on more species. So this is a very, very long-term project, which is going to require a lot of inputs. So the plan is to keep collecting data so that there's at least a database for scientists and even citizens to work on. And the plan is to just reach out to more and more people. I mean, for now we have only a few thousand individuals and some more thousand schools which participate in the data collection, and the next immediate goal is to reach out to more people and gather more data from more parts of the country. The outcome would be, you saw the Kanikona slide, right? The Indian Lebanon study. That is the kind of outcome that is expected from the data that will be collected. And we are doing analysis of periodic data, of short data. And now we're gearing up to analyze all 5.5 lakh observations that we have right now. So let's see what we can conclude from this 10-year data. And we'll surely share it when we're out with it. So I hope that answers your question. Jagjot, there is no WhatsApp group for Delhi right now, but we have a Facebook group in the name of Season Watch, and you can join that if you like. I will send the link to the pocket guide to this group, and you can um, place your orders directly there. Okay. Any other questions remaining? Is there a group for Madhya Pradesh? Let me check. There is a group for Mandla in Madhya Pradesh, which is for the people who work at Foundation of Ecological Security. But I suppose you can join that group. I'll send the link to that group as well. Nature Sai people, is it? Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing then, Siddesh. I'm really glad I met you in this webinar, and I hope you will be able to join and interact with the group there. There is a group for Kerala. Kerala is our star contributor. The state is on fire with the observations. So Kerala is everything in season watch happens in Kerala. There is no group in UP. There will be a certificate given for this webinar, but there is no certificate for contributing to season watch. Sorry, it's all your own satisfaction. There is a group for Maharashtra. Yes, I'll send a link to that. Assam group is not there currently. We have a Meghalaya group right now. But Pragyan, if you know a few people and if you can collaborate with us, then we can definitely make a WhatsApp group. West Bengal group is also not there, sadly. We've been trying very hard to do some outreach there. Himachal Pradesh is also not there yet. Neither is Chhattisgarh. I'll just read out how many groups we have. So we surely have Kerala. We have Tamil Nadu. We have Meghalaya, Maharashtra, Bangalore, Andaman, Uttarakhand, Madhya Pradesh, Mandla. So these are the groups that we have right now. Anything other than that, we do not have. But if you would like to make one, collaborate with us, again, we're open. So just email to us and we shall make a group. Have you missed any questions? Questions other than, oh wait, so there's one question about regarding permanent, the only not disturbed area is forested area. And so doing observation rural or urban will give effective data. So that is a good question. There is a huge difference between how trees behave in forested area and in urban areas. But we do take information about the location, right? So we can identify certain factors in the urban setup which can affect the trees, and then the data will be analyzed, I think, separately for both the regions. So that care will be taken. And because most the impact of climate change is going to be everywhere in the forested area as well as in urban areas. So we are not differentiating it at the data collection level. Also, forested areas, like I mentioned earlier, protected forests do have their own data collection going on. What is lacking is collection in the urban areas, and I think it is being done quite effectively through season watch right now, and hoping to make it more effective. So the goal is to get as much data as possible and then determine what all we can find out from the data that we will be getting. Deepak, I hope that answers your question. I hope you're still in the meeting. How to make students curious to watch biodiversity? Oh, that's an age-old question for all of us, isn't it? And I think biodiversity is doable. Trees are more difficult than others. For example, you can begin with birds, which is how most people get interested in biodiversity. You can begin with butterflies. So these charming species are good to begin. And I think what really gets people started is how you yourself interact with the biodiversity around you, right? So I learned to like trees because I saw somebody love it so much, and that got me very inspired and interested in botany. So I think if you, Govardhan Reddy, if you are a lecturer, a professor, a naturalist, start taking people out, start talking to them about what you know, ask them to observe and share their observations, and that is how you, I think, inspire and get them curious. I hope that helps. There is a certificate about this webinar, yes. Due to urban heat island effects, which I can't see the whole thing, which varies with different regions, impact on trees will vary. How will you collate? Damn it. Okay, so when we analyze the data, we connect the phenophases that is in the observation with the regional climatic data. So when we're looking at particular locations, we have very specific weather conditions and weather data for exactly that day, and that is how the data will be collated. I hope that answers your question, Chinmay. And rather than entirety in India, it will be a trend in what kind of impact there is rather than what is happening where. Or what is happening where is also doable, but there won't be one single statement for entire India, that's for sure, because there's so much diversity, and like we saw, not all individuals of all species are going to do the same throughout India, but there can be one um, like a conclusion for different pockets or in urban or forested areas or so on. So there won't be just one entire India and this is what is happening in India. That won't be the conclusion from the data for sure. Okay. So anything else? Jagjot Singh, would you like to get in touch with us on email? Will you be able to do that? Or you can note down the WhatsApp number if you can talk. And I would love to talk to you about your interests, and if you would like to start watching trees along with birds and bird photography. Does season watch help in conserving and reforestation in any way? Not very directly, because that's not what we're looking at. We don't even document any biodiversity, but there are some endangered species in our list, and there's a Instagram post about it on our Instagram. And so that is by getting the location, maybe their numbers, is what will help to understand the status of these trees in areas which are not surveyed usually, like cities. So that is one indirect way in which season watch can help get uh, into conservation and restoration. So restoration is also can be helped or assisted by the phenology information that we will have. So we will know exactly when to collect the seeds of trees that we want to plant. Right, so that is one way in which this data will help. So because this is a baseline, a lot of applications can be found of this whole data, and so that's what we are trying to do. Hmm. Jagjot Singh, that's okay. So if you can use your mom's Instagram for a while and find season watch on Instagram, I think we can get connected there. Can season watch have data on invasive? Amazing question, Pragyan. Thank you for asking that. So we do have two invasive species in our list, which is Lantana and Prosopis juliflora. And we get a lot of hatred actually sometimes for that. But our purpose is to understand the phenology of these species so that we can better manage them. We know exactly what the trend of flowering and fruiting in each area of the country is. And so we can develop region specific management methods for these species. So we do have the provision to collect data on invasive species. Thank you for that question. That's my favorite question from today. Due to the climate change, flowering period is shifted in many plants. So you also work on some pollinators data. So we do not collect pollinator data directly, but like I had showed you that there is a provision of adding information on bees and butterflies. That is little bit helpful to understand that. But we only focus on tree species particularly, which are these 150 identified species, to understand the climate change and its impact. So in a personal observation, I have noted that the kanchan or purple bauhinia flowers were blooming very early than their usual period. They started blooming in December, but the bees or the pollinators started coming to the flowers only during February. So that is one way in which you can understand what's happening with the pollinator and flower interaction in specific species. So that's one way in which the data can be collected. It's not drastically happening only in certain extent, but the researchers doing and observing technology plan for, is this correct observation or more time is required for this? Definitely more time. Like I mentioned, Season Watch has been doing it for 10 years now, and still we cannot say anything for sure. So it's a really, really long study if we are to find something substantial from observing phenology. And like you said, climate change is not drastic, and which is why it's taking more time. So thank you, Deepak, for that question. More surely more time, more amount of data, observations on more individual, everything is needed. And which is why season watch is so crucial. And that's not just because I'm talking about season watch, but when we think of climate change and trees and the impact that it has and the scale and the speed at which this impact is happening, I think this is actually a very crucial data. And the best part is all of us can contribute to it. It's not just some people's job to make this observation and do this study, right? I think that is the best thing. I mean, we get to contribute to something so crucial and which is going to have some good result. So which is what also appeals to me about season watch. Okay, do we have to stop? I mean, we have had a lot of interaction now. If you have any more questions, please do find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, even WhatsApp, or you can directly email us at sw@seasonwatch.in. And we are open to collaborating. We are open to sending resources, which includes the poster and the handbook and observation sheets. You can download. You can even download these things. These resources from our website. I'll send the links to those as well. You can also order the pocket guides from the link that I shall be sharing. So I hope you all are able to connect with us and stay connected and share your tree photos and stories. We would be more than happy to showcase them with our audience and interact with you. Thank you so much for all your compliments and attending this session. Thank you.
It looks like we have covered all of our questions.
Okay.
Ms. Girdhari, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, I think I've shared all my information for now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your patience, and thank you once again, Ms. Girdhari, for being there with us today. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity and all the communication Goshika and I have done to get this done. So thanks Goshika for being patient with me, and thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. I had really great fun interacting with all the participants and you all. Thanks again.
Also,
Thank you so
I
much.
would
Yeah. Goshika is not here. She had some issues. She wasn't able to join, but thank you so much, ma'am, to be here with us.
Okay, I'll message her personally.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Also, I would like to tell you that we have an event lined up on 1st July where we have a webinar on Russell's Viper ecology, which will be presented by Mr. Jerry Martin. The original registration fee is rupees 445, but we have a special discount for all our participants today. If you wish to attend this webinar, you can register for it at only rupees 375. This offer is valid till 10 a.m. IST, 17th June. So if you wish to register for it, drop us a message and we would let you know the details. Thanks to all for joining us today. Also, we have an announcement for today. I would like to call Mr. Aman Vishwas from the Nature's core team who have an announcement for the upcoming events lined up from the nature side.
Okay, so we have came to the end of our session, and I hope that every one of you enjoyed a lot and also got to know various things that added up to your knowledge. I would also like to thank our resource person, Sai Girdhari ma'am, that she gave us their valuable time and also imparted their valuable knowledge. We hope to see you again, ma'am, in our upcoming events. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I would also like to thank all our participants for being such a wonderful audience. We hope to see you all on our upcoming events. And just a small announcement that I have to make here. So the event that you joined today is a part of a bigger event, that is webinar on Russell's Viper ecology. So all you have to do is visit the Nature's Eye website and visit the upcoming event section, and you will find this webinar on Russell's Viper ecology. Here you will get to know a lot about the elusive species, and also there are certain more events lined up, like the, just a second guys, our wildlife filmmaking expedition, and for that you have to visit our website and then visit the travel with us section. So here we have the wildlife filmmaking and photography expedition to the Western Ghats that will be happening in the month of July and August. The seats for the June event that was happening in Mathiran has been filled up. So the next spots are Amboli and Coorg. So it's a great opportunity for wildlife enthusiasts like you to join us on this trail and enjoy the natural and scenic beauty of the Western Ghats. So we hope to see you there and host you on our upcoming events. Thanks a lot, everyone. And with this, I think we can end our session. Thanks a lot, Sai ma'am, once again.
Thank you. Hey, can one of you please share your contacts so that I can send you all the links that we are to share with the participants?
Okay,
Yes,
sure,
ma'am.
ma'am. I'll drop my contact number.
Yeah, please.
Okay, ma'am. So my WhatsApp number is in the chat box. You may drop the links down there.
I can't see it yet.
Oh, just a second. It's been sent to another place. Now is it visible, ma'am?
Yeah, got it.
Okay,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks to all for joining us today. The e-certificates will be mailed to all the participants within the next 3 to 4 working days. Thank you once again, and we will see you next time.